Anderson. Welcome to Gruen. We'll get to our panel in a moment, but first, last week, Vegemite took to Instagram to announce something big is coming, which scared the crappy little Vegemite out of me because that's the most threatening campaign since Corona said it was coming ashore soon. Go on then, what's the big ad announcement?
Use it in the kitchen, use it in the car. Breakfast, lunch and tea, no more butter in your jar. There are no rules, it's really quite easy. Make anything taste like Australia with new Vegemite Squeezy.
Can't wait to sit in the car with one hand on my meat pie, one hand on the squeeze bottle and no hands on the wheel. And after that, I can squeeze it on my hospital food. Vegemite Squeezy is the most exciting announcement since 14 years ago when Marmite released this.
New Marmite Squeezy.
Or 20 years ago when Vegemite started coming in a tube, which is kinda squeezy. Vegemite have been busy little advertisers this year. They got Aussie artist G-Flip to cover their jingle.
We're happy little Vegemites as bright can be.
And made a double-sided knife that lets you spread Vegemite with one end while you badly cut yourself with the other, which they gave away in a contest. I don't know, Vegemite, if someone enters a contest because they really want a knife, maybe don't give them a knife, except this guy. That's how you sell a veggie knife. So who would swallow all this blatant veggie marketing?
Australia's iconic spread has a brand new look. Vegemite now comes in a squeezable bottle.
Vegemite.
Vegemite? Vegemite.
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 The company commissioned a survey finding that 58% of Aussies fear cross-contamination.
It's 2020. That's not the contamination I'm worried about. But at least Brekkie TV is finally talking about breakfast. Time to welcome our happy little panellists, Russell Howcroft, Karen Ferry, Sunita Gloucester and Todd Sampson. Tourism is a $152 billion industry. Sorry, that's not right. Tourism was an $152 billion industry, but has lost over $33 billion just this year. In August and September, international arrivals dropped by 99%, and the industry that employs 1 in 13 Australians is struggling to recover. I'd say it's up shit creek, but unfortunately shit creek is still closed to tourists. So let's go back and find out what the bloody hell happened. It all started Christmas last year with a campaign aimed at the UK that aired just before a message from the star of the hit series, The Crown. The expensive ad even featured Australia's own Queen.
This year's been tough and confusing, but progress is moving.
Well, a glacial pace. Sorry.
But all of Australia loves you, and we'll never judge you.
You just need some space. Because negotiating tricky trade deals is a shocker.
But look, there's a quokka, and that's what you need. A quokka is really what you need. Don't bite your nails to the cuticles. And with impressive marsupials,
Helping a mate is a
national trait in Australia.
So see you soon then, yeah?
Firstly, I look good with a beard. That $15 million ad played to almost 6 million Brits. And just days later, everyone was talking about us.
Now, what's happening in Australia is unprecedented.
The tragedy unfolding in Australia is climate change based.
And right now, Australia needs our help.
Yikes. Tourism Australia had to yank the campaign. We couldn't even distract them with this.
But look, there's a quokka.
Sunita, could they run this ad and campaign again?
Look, I don't think so, Will. This was a story about 2019. So it was about Brexit, it was about the cricket, it was about all the uncertainty in the market. And I think the brilliance of the campaign, though, so it wasn't a waste, it ran for as long as it did, is that it attached itself to the Kylie road train of 2019 and it had an outstanding media strategy. ITV put Kylie's Christmas special that evening as well. So you saw her, in front of the Queen's message, and they teased it beforehand. So she'd come on screen and on social and say, come and share my little message with my quokka in the weeks prior. So it dragged people from the BBC onto ITV, and viewership was up 22%.
So if you just park the unfortunate timing, this ad was criticised for a number of things. One was it was exceptionally white. And considering that 30% of Australians come from overseas, it was surprisingly wide. Even the line where they say, we speak your language, is making the assumption that everyone coming is an English speaker.
I think like they're focusing on a time when it feels like for the UK, everything's collapsing. They know that they're going to need to get their passport outs to go to Europe, which is where they often go. So this is more of a reminder, like 51% of UK travellers to Australia come to visit friends or family. So it's really just saying, like, you might feel rejected by the rest of the world, but we're here and we're still friends. And it's really playing up that sense that the English feel like we're part of the Commonwealth and we're essentially still owned by them.
This is the best ad for Australia since Put a Shrimp on the Barbie, Will. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant that Tourism Australia chose to spend that sheer weight of money to get Kylie and to get other people, other Australians that are well known to the Brits, to make something as big as this, to roadblock it, to put it on before the Queen's speech. This is proper big thinking by a big country to energise the Brits to get here. And what you've got to do, you've got to get as many Brits as you possibly can contemplating coming to Australia, because it is going to take a long time to get them here. They like going to Spain. It takes a lot of effort to get them on a plane for 24 hours. And what they will do, they will absolutely reward Australia for putting in the effort to give them Kylie. We've got to remember, like, she's still a top 10 pop star in the UK. That little move that she does, that little move in the ad with, you know, she puts up her shorts there, those shorts are in the alternative.
I'm starting to understand that emotional arousal.
We all know what the UK is like when it comes to emotional arousal. They love that stuff. Those shorts are in the alternate heritage list in the UK.
There's no reason that that ad couldn't be used later, because except for maybe Kylie, because Kylie got paid just under $1 million for it. And her contract would have been a limited time frame, so I don't know what they would have negotiated, but that would be one of the barriers to not use it again. But I'm sure Kylie would be generous in that fee.
No, you must never ever. This ad must never be seen ever again. If you run this
Hang on, you've gone
the UK,
from this is the best ad since Shrimp on the Barbie to this ad should never be seen again.
It should never be seen again. Oh, if we roll that advertising out again, all that does is send a signal that we can't afford to make something else.
No, it doesn't send that signal.
Absolutely, it does.
But it didn't run enough to have any sort of wear out. What it probably would say is they're smart enough to use the asset that they have.
But it was a story about 2019, so I think it's time to make another ad.
I don't see the reason to not use it. Because it didn't do any run out, and if it was effective, I mean, I don't love it, as you know, but if it was effective, then it certainly got legs. I think the only thing would hold it back would be contracts.
Next up, in the year from bloody hell, the world stopped, but the advertising didn't. And in April, Tourism Australia tried to sell a country that you couldn't visit.
A funny thing happened on the way home. As we closed our doors and explored smaller worlds, we looked out through the window and realised we missed you. So, look, there's a quokka. Roos running amok. Whale sharks roaming quietly. Our silence. Their bliss. What else is going on? Well, the winds are yet sweeter. The grass is getting greener. Uluru is having a rest.
That's the only time I've heard someone get bored while narrating their own ad.
What else is going on?
Needed more Aussie flavour. Oh, look, there's a quokka. I also love those beautiful, generic screensaver backgrounds. Everything looks so pristine without lousy tourists ruining it. Karen, is telling tourists they screw up the environment the best way to sell it?
I don't think that's what that ad is doing. I don't think it's pointing the finger at all. I mean, that's kind of what we expect to see from tourism advertising, is like all this spacious nature. And when we get there, we're like, oh, tourists. But we don't realise that we ourselves are tourists and we're part of the problem. I think there's something wrong with human brains where that's just not inbuilt to recognise our own flaws. What this ad actually is reputation management. So after the bushfires, the photos of scorched landscapes, but also the headlines about how 3 billion animals were killed. To anyone that hasn't been to Australia and doesn't know how big we are as an island, they would assume that's the whole country. So this is literally saying, like, we've still got animals to kill, don't worry.
Yeah, sensationalist news coverage does more branding of Australia than Australian tourism does. The bushfires have sort of undercut the feeling that you're going to be safe across Australia, anywhere in Australia. So it's just been spread across the whole nation. And I think that this is hinting at nature healing itself. And COVID, if it's done so much bad, but it will provide one good for the future of tourism advertising in Australia, is how we've handled it and how we're seen isolated from the rest of the world. And in many ways, having been able to get on top of it quickly, and we could become a sort of safe haven for travel in people's minds. But I have a pet peeve with koalas. I worked on Tourism Australia when I first came here 25 years ago. It was my first account that I worked on. And in almost every ad, we use koalas. I wish that they got a talent fee, because to me, they seem in this country more like icons and more like symbols than real animals that are on the verge of extinction. And if there was a talent fee associated with all the money made off the back of koalas, they would have no problem fighting for their own survival.
Yeah, I think this is the reason.
The quokka's coming for the koala's title, though.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think, you know, oh, look, there's a quokka is the new, that's not a knife, this is a knife.
There's a lovely idea which has been developed by an Australian business called the Lion Share. Lion as an L-I-O-N. Launched at the UN as well. And the Lion Share is actually doing what Todd's suggesting, where animals get talent fees, so the advertiser pays the animal talent fees into the World Wildlife Fund. It's globally recognised, really, it's awesome.
Yeah.
With the borders closed to international arrivals, Tourism Australia had to find a way to sell us to ourselves. Easy, considering Australians famously love our tourism campaigns.
Oh no, this is so embarrassing.
To win us over, they released one ad narrated by Hamish Blake.
Australia. Whoever came up with this place deserves a real pat on the back. Mammals who can sing, waterfalls that can fall both ways, and 126 different shops that all reckon they sell the world's best pie.
And another ad with Hamish and his soulmate. Not Andy, the other one.
So, I need a holiday.
Do you?
Yeah. For Australia.
What about the outback?
Yes. Yes.
We could catch our own lunch.
I know exactly what you mean. Oh, honey, I could teach the kids to surf.
You don't know how to surf.
Yeah, I mean, obviously someone would teach me and then I would pass on the wisdom to them. You know what? Maybe, we have a fancy night in, you know, for Australia.
I think I'm ready for a night out.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we're going out.
We should just go somewhere we've always wanted to go.
Yes. I think we're doing this.
Plan a holiday here this year for Australia.
Hey, what are you doing?
Oh, I just thought we might pack a bit lighter, you know, for Australia.
No.
No, actually, I think we'll pack heavy. Oh, what are these doing on the floor?
Plan a holiday here this year? I guess this was too depressing. Tourism ads usually sell the dream. Russell, is squabbling over a suitcase the dream?
It's quite soft, this advertising, isn't it? And I think it's soft because it's just at that moment in time. Obviously, Hamish and Zoe are quite interesting in Australia in that they're both aspirational and mass. That does not happen very often. I think they're entirely appropriate as the people to talk us into just getting confidence and getting moving.
Look, I'm not as much of a fan, Russell. I've got to tell you, I expected more from our modern family. I get that Hamish brings a little bit of magic to it, but they go back to gender portrayals from the 1950s. You know, it's the inept, goofy dad who's full of fun and adventure, and the mother is responsible. She's sitting in the kitchen, albeit on a computer. Those are things that we did in Women's Weekly in 1950. You know, I think we have an obligation to do to change gender stereotypes stereotypes in advertising.
I do think all the money was spent on talent fees and not much on execution. Because I agree. I think they are a very unique marketing couple because you got Hamish, who is one of the most loved celebrities in Australia.
He could tell me anything.
Yeah,
that voiceover,
same.
that ad, I'm just like,
He's
whatever,
so
Hamish.
loved. I remember
like if it was Hamish and Hitler, not Hamish and Andy, I'd be like, let's hear him out.
He sits on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So you got Hamish, a knockabout bloke, lovely. And by the way, he's lovely in person, and he's just a really good guy. Yeah. And then you got Zoe, who sits at the other end of the spectrum, a bit more sophisticated, it's the wrong word, but a bit more upmarket. She appeals to a different audience, and it's rare in one couple that you combine both spectrums of a target market. I think great choice. Poor writing.
I mean, I was also want to say, I didn't pick up on the couple thing. That's actually the energy of my husband and I, so I'm just going to leave that on the table. But I can see why they had to sacrifice a lot of, like, I would like to see him be funnier because that's what he's good at, but I can see why they've kind of had to sacrifice that to do what they did. Like, it's a short ad and it feels like it just keeps telling us over and over and over again just to plan a holiday. And I think that's because that's what we ultimately need as people to do. Australians have the rest of Australia really low on our bucket list. Like, going to Uluru is something you do when you're a grey nomad. It's not something you do when you're young. So as soon as Australians get planning, that's when we start booking. So this is just like literally a tutorial demonstration on how to speak to your spouse, pick a destination and book it so you can pack.
Yeah. Okay, so, we can have a discussion around the writing. The production would obviously have been constrained because they wouldn't be able to have a shoot. So you're going to be just dealing, with a very simple production schedule. But the end line is really good. So For Oz is powerful, and you would like to see them continuing with that line. That's something I can see working over the long term. So we haven't really seen that much since then. And I'm just sort of thinking about, well, what advertising have I seen for tourism? I suppose it's because I'm in Melbourne, because we can't travel anywhere. But
we're trying to sell you an exotic holiday 6 kilometres from your house.
Right. I'm assuming you guys are seeing lots of tourism advertising right now in New South Wales. It's gone dark here, but presumably when we can start travelling, For Oz will be used. It should be used. I think it's really strong.
As the world slowly opens again, Australia will have competition. Tourism is booming in places like Wuhan, and Kazakhstan has a new campaign that's gone full Borat.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
But like in all things, our major competition comes from New Zealand.
I'd love to give a shout out to my mates in the US right now.
Andy and Melbourne, I miss you. I love my mum and dad.
Massive shout out to my family.
I'd love to say hello to my parents who are in Ho Chi Minh City right now.
To my grandma.
To my parents, I really love you.
Eric in Belgium. Kia ora, my bro.
My parents that are in Colombia.
I'd like to give a shout out to my cousin in Singapore.
I love you, los amo.
Just know that your whānau here in New Zealand misses you.
Hi, Mum, I'm on camera.
Oh, Andy in Melbourne, I miss you too. Todd, will Aussies go to Queensland when they can go to Queenstown?
Oh, the Kiwis. They're better at us at many things, and they're certainly better at us when it comes to tourism advertising. They are the best in the world at it, and they're just 100% Pure New Zealand is arguably the best, one of, if not the best, advertising campaign that was ever made for a destination. And they've done such a sensational job. That's their version of mateship. And they managed to do it with fun and empathy. They're not self-conscious. It's just lovely how they can communicate to the rest of the world. That's similar to what we tried to do, but it felt kind of a bit stuck and a bit worthy. They did it in a way where you almost forget it's advertising.
They're a whole nation of Hamishes in New Zealand. Everyone's a bloody Hamish.
Everyone's a Hamish in New Zealand.
Yeah, they're great advertisers. New Zealand are very, very good at advertising, and whether they're advertising a product or whether they're advertising their country, they all seem to fall in line around the notion of pure, or 100% pure. There's actually even, if you go back to early this century, like 2001, 2002, the very famous Professor Michael Porter from Harvard actually wrote a business plan for the country. And ever since then, they've all fallen in line to this whole notion of pure, and it just shows the power of a single-minded idea. And it culturally works, it works for them commercially. works for them for trade, works for them obviously for tourism. And this again shows what great advertisers they are. Despite the fact we can't get on a plane, they know the old Wrigley's case study. So everyone in the ad world knows that Wrigley's advertised throughout the Second World War, despite the fact you couldn't buy any chewing gum. But as soon as the Second World War finished and you could buy chewing gum, Wrigley's went absolutely nuts. Smart advertisers continue to advertise even when you can't be a buyer.
What's quite interesting is that this actually feels more like an immigration campaign. It's not, there's no destination point. It's like, these are just lovely people, you know, on a hay bale, you know, in front of like sometimes not very endearing landscapes. And you just be like, but it just feels like a place you want to be. And they're actually giving shout outs to people that they know. And I wonder if it's also a reverse immigration thing. So for New Zealand, their big problem with population is brain drain. A lot of people leave and work overseas, and so they're not keeping their talent. But since the start of COVID, they've had 50,000 New Zealanders return. There's actually 600,000 New Zealanders working overseas, and they think that there's probably going to be another 50,000 coming back. So I do wonder if it's a thing of being like, hey, you're in hell right now, but don't forget I still love you.
That's a really awesome point, Karen. And that is also an opportunity for Australia. We've got 1 million expats out there making huge impacts around the world. Massive opportunity for us to communicate to them and get them back here.
With a lot of the world still locked off, the battle for tourists is now state against state, mate against mate. New South Wales said,
"Now's the time to love New South Wales."
Which explains why, up until now, everyone hated it. Queensland said, "It's a beautiful place to holiday here." A very confusing sentence out loud to say. The NT said the Territory is the answer. The question, where can I be eaten by a crocodile? And South Australia set their sights on Kiwis, narrating its ad in a choice accent, brew.
Hey, New Zealand. We can't wait to see you. When you're good and ready, our table is set. Visit southaustralia.co.nz.
There's only one way to describe that.
Oh, no. This is so embarrassing.
We've seen the sights of Australia and the taste of Australia, but one campaign that caught our ears let you listen to all the sounds of Australia. The one place they forgot to include? The Gold Coast, who weren't happy. But don't worry, Goldie, we've got you covered. Sit back and enjoy the sounds of the Gold Coast. In a year full of political divisiveness, there was one attack ad I did not expect. An Aussie brand taking a swing at McDonald's and the Big Mac.
Big Jack, now at Hungry Jack's. Bigger, better, flamier.
That campaign was followed by this whopper.
Someone's suing Hungry Jack's. They reckon Aussies are confusing the Big Jack with some American burger, but the Big Jack's clearly bigger with 25% more Aussie beef, flame grilled with a barbecue taste. And you can only get the Big Jack at Hungry Jack's. The burgers are better.
More like the burgers are borrowed at Hungry Jack's. Macca's sued Hungry Jack's over its Aldi version of the Big Mac. What did the public think?
Oh, no. This is so embarrassing.
Karen, why pick this fight?
Okay, so there's kind of legal argy-bargies, something that we've seen, you know, it's very traditional marketing behaviour. Like, it was really big in the cola wars in the 70s with, like, Pepsi and Coke. And the reason why they do it is because they just want you to taste test. Because Hungry Jack's know, in a taste test, their burgers always come out on top.
Look, I actually really love this campaign, and I think this will be one that we'll be teaching marketing students in years to come because there's so much in it. This isn't about a lawsuit. This is about a really good marketing strategy to switch users from, or consumers from a Big Mac into an equivalent, which there hasn't been one for 49 years. The Big Mac has been uncontested as the holy grail of burgers. And this campaign is about, firstly, registering the trademark, Big Jack. No one contested that. That's the fight McDonald's should have had. And now
that's crazy, really.
Now,
isn't it?
exactly, that's a slip. So now the fight is about, is it confusing to have these two in the market? Well, it can't be confusing because when you go into Hungry Jack's, you can't buy a Big Mac, so you can't be confused at the point of purchase.
I understand why they want to protect it.
Yeah.
They sell, just in America alone, per year, they sell nearly 500 million Big Macs. I mean, this is their foundation product, so they would do everything they can to try and protect it. And they lost the trademark in Europe. And they do not want this to keep slipping, because if they lose... So in Europe, other companies can use Big Mac now.
A few weeks ago, a Sydney burger chain flogged its Big Mac Jack before being slapped with a cease and desist from litigious grilled roasted KFC with its "You Are What You Eat" campaign. Guess that makes me not grilled. And last year, Hungry Jack's released this familiar-sounding spot.
You're driving a truck, pulling an all-nighter, racing to stop them from going under. You sure got a hunger. A hard-earned hunger needs a big, juicy burger.
Brave to start a rhyming ad with the word truck. This is far from the first attack on Macca's. This year, when a Utah man found a 20-year-old burger in nearly perfect condition, Burger King hit back with this, and strap in, it's gross.
Little hours, what a difference a day made. I know in my heart the difference is you.
Sure, that looks inedible, but just try it with this. Tastes like mouldy Australia. Russell, is putting people off their food a good way to sell burgers?
No, I don't think it is. I think what sometimes happens is advertising gets made in order for it to be news. And that's what this is all about. Let's make newsworthy advertising, because that way we get free media, like all the so-called earned media. I don't think that sells any burgers at all. I also think that potentially it's wrong at a deeper level, because the overriding impression that you get of the burger, of course, is of a mouldy, ugly thing that you'd never stick in your mouth. And I just don't think that that's what the game of brand, in particular food marketing, is all about. I don't know, think about the most aspirational partner that you've ever fantasised about, Will.
OK.
And then let's put that individual on a 38-year time-lapse camera. The final image that you see is the one that is going to be in your brain for the rest of your life, not the one that you started with.
Yeah.
So I actually don't think it works at an aspirational level. It doesn't work at an appetite level.
That's the point, right? Like, that's the whole thing. No one's saying you have to buy a 30, 40-day-old Whopper. What they're saying is that we need to think about what we're doing. This demographic that Burger King's demographic, so younger people, they don't follow the ideas of what food marketing should be. And they also aren't as upset about bacteria as we traditionally would be, you know, the Ajax generation. We're talking about people who grew up with Nickelodeon slime videos and GAC, and they now have kombucha scobies and sourdough starters and compost, and they're fostering their microbiome. They understand that bacteria is good. The fact that you can grow bacteria in a burger is good, as opposed to something that you can bury in your closet or bury in your landfill. That's plastic, that's not food.
I understand how you get to make that ad. I understand that the no preservatives supports the proposition that they've got product in there that's fresh. I get it. I get why they've made it. I even, wow, get this, understand the target audience that it's targeted at. I understand all of that. It will sell nothing.
I don't think it's intended to sell anything, though.
What's the point of it?
Well, I'm just about to tell you, Russell. 1 second. If you hold on for a second. So I spent many years working on McDonald's, and they always have a multi-pronged strategy for communicating to the market. So you might have taste, convenience, quality, and real food. There's always a pillar within their marketing mix about real food, because it's filled with so many myths. Burger King used that against McDonald's. The thing I found entertaining about that ad was their starting point. They started with a non-realistic burger, a fully art-directed, propped-up, beautiful-looking burger, which they held on the shot for a long time. And then it went back to what one would argue most burgers look like, minus the mold, in the packaging. So I don't love it, Russ. I don't think you look at it and go, I can't wait to eat a burger, but I get it among the mix of what they're communicating.
We thought it'd be cruel to do a whole segment about burgers without a taste test. So, Russell, here's one we prepared earlier. much earlier.
Oh, no.
Oh, there you go, Russ.
I mean, and that's the point, right? Who's going to eat that?
Well, if you were committed to this show, you would. At least the ad sold one. Thanks to our panel tonight. Russell, thank you very much. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Sunita. And thank you, Todd.
Get it in you, Russ.
Oh, come on.
Oh, my God.
Tourism Australia may have had the year from bloody hell, but there is hope on the horizon, specifically a man who can turn any song into a smash hit. The Bunnings jingler himself, Trevor Hilton from Western Australia. Take it away, Trevor. We'll see you next week.
This whole campaign was a failure.